Part 1. The Indian Famine of 1943 was a devastating event that had a profound impact on the country and its people. At the time, India was under British rule, and the policies of the British government had a direct impact on the severity of the famine. As World War II raged on, the British government prioritized the needs of the war effort over the needs of the Indian people. They diverted food resources away from India and towards the war effort, leaving millions of people without enough to eat. The situation was made worse by British policies that forced farmers to produce crops for export rather than for local consumption. This meant that even though there was enough food being produced, it was not available to the people who needed it most. As the famine took hold, millions of people began to die from starvation and disease. The situation was made even worse by the fact that the British government initially denied the severity of the crisis and failed to take action to address it. It wasn't until years later that the full scale of the tragedy was acknowledged, and even then, the British government failed to take full responsibility for their role in causing it. The legacy of the Indian Famine of 1943 serves as a powerful reminder of the devastating impact that colonialism and imperialism can have on the lives of ordinary people. Part 2. The brutal suppression of indigenous peoples and cultures was a defining feature of the British Empire. In many cases, the British imposed their own cultural and religious beliefs onto colonized peoples, attempting to eradicate traditional practices and beliefs. One example of this was the banning of female genital mutilation, FGM, in Kenya in the early 20th century. While the practice itself was harmful and oppressive to women and girls, the way in which the British went about banning it was also violent and oppressive. British officials would often forcibly examine women and girls to ensure that they had not undergone the procedure, violating their privacy and dignity in the process. This kind of violence was not limited to cultural practices, however. The British also frequently used violence to suppress resistance to colonial rule. One of the most notorious examples of this was the Amritsar massacre in India in 1919. On that day, a peaceful gathering of unarmed civilians was fired upon by British soldiers, killing hundreds and injuring thousands. The massacre was a turning point in the Indian independence movement, galvanizing public opinion against British rule and leading to increased resistance and activism. However, it also serves as a powerful reminder of the violent and oppressive nature of colonialism and imperialism. Part 3. The legacy of the British Empire is not just a matter of historical record. It continues to have real-world consequences today, both in the countries that were colonized and in Britain itself. In Britain, the legacy of the empire can be seen in the persistent inequalities that exist along racial and class lines. Many of the structures and systems that were put in place during the colonial period continue to shape British society today, perpetuating systems of oppression and inequality. To truly move forward and address these issues, it is important for people in Britain to acknowledge the truth about the empire and the harm it caused. This means not only recognizing the violence and exploitation that took place but also acknowledging the ongoing legacies of colonialism. It also means taking concrete steps to dismantle these legacies and work towards a more just and equitable society. This includes listening to and centering the voices of those who have been most affected by colonialism and working to address the ongoing injustices that they face. Only by confronting the truth about the British Empire and working to dismantle its legacies can we move towards a future that is truly just and equitable for all.